Hey everybody, hope you're doing good today. What we're going to be going over now is a little intro to Ruby. It's not going to be fully comprehensive as a warning, mainly because we're kind of hopping from language to language to language in this class. But I wanted to kind of give you just a couple of little intro pointers to get you up and running because as you do a little bit of Rails, you're going to need to know how to write Ruby code. And I mentioned before, it's very kind of Python-esque if you're familiar with that. If you're not, and it's brand new to you, that's great too. But it's really not that hard. It's very programmer friendly, which is, again, if you remember back to the last video, that's kind of their goal anyway. Sorry, moving something out of the way here on the floor. So I've got in Blackboard as one of your reading assignments a link to this Learn to Program blog. Now, it's basically it accompanies a textbook, I think, and it's just kind of a nice, gentle intro to all the basics that you would probably be looking for, if you're looking to pick up a new language syntax. And on the left here, it's a little bit tiny. Let me zoom in a bit. You just have everything that you basically would need to know from printing, hello world, ifs and loops, arrays, classes, things of that nature. And that's basically what we're going to be kind of going over today, or at least in this video now. And additionally, I don't know if I'm going to get to it in this video or if it'll be split up, but there's also this link I've got as well, where it is basically your intro to MVC with Rails. Now I'm going to move this over here, and we have a nice black terminal open. All right, so I have lost my slides. Where'd they go? Got too much stuff open. All right, so we already installed Rails. Again, I did that separately, and I kind of, we did that Hello World Rails blog thing where you just did Rails new blog, and we created that. But let's get up and running with Ruby. So I'm going to move this off screen as well, and I'll let you kind of follow through separately. But basically, oh, that fell off screen there. I've got hello world, we've got flow control, for loops, arrays, a little bit of classes, and then we're going to do a MVC demo. So I'm going to slide this over here as well, and away we go. So two things. Ruby, again, is a programming language. Rails is going to be the MVC architecture in your server. There are two ways that we can work with Rails. Now we can do it interactive, and kind of like you would with Python, where you just type Python and you get your, I'm doing this, and I have a terminal right here in front of me. You just type Python and say print hello, right? I get hello. In Ruby, and again, I'm using Ubuntu on Windows here, so this is a Linux terminal. If you're running Ruby and Windows, you probably would need PowerShell or something like that, or some kind of an IDE. I'm just going to do everything in the terminal. So we can type IRB, which is going to give us the Ruby shell. And pretty much just like Python, again, I'm not expecting you to know Python, but everything that we type in here is going to be automatically interpreted. We could also store our code as Ruby files, so like a .rb extension. I'll do that as well, and then we can just run it with Ruby. So first things first, puts is going to be our print statement. So it's going to be your cout, your print line. All right, this is how we put something out there. Hello world. Incredible. We also get the output of whatever we did last. So we get null or nil here. Now I'm going to type in exit, and I'm going to touch a new file, .rb. So this is just going to create an empty file, edit it, and I could also say puts hello world from a file. Should get this out of the way. So basically the same thing, just print out a string. Now I've got this new file here, and I can run Ruby new file.rb. I get pretty much the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just do everything in the interpreter for now, just so I don't clutter up my system here with temporary files. But IRB. Now, other things with puts that we can do, it can automatically handle arithmetic, things of that nature in line. If I were to say puts 1 plus 2 plus 3 times 5 divided by 6, again, we get basic mathematical operations, variables. We don't have anything special that we have to do. test var equals, go with name, Eric, puts test var. Did I call this something wrong? Oh, I didn't capitalize it. All right, always good to see errors. Undefined local variable, no, what does that mean? Oh, I forgot to capitalize it. So, there's my Eric, there we go. And pretty straightforward. The opposite of puts is going to be gets if you want to get input from the user. I could say in IP equals gets, and I say, hello there. And I can do puts IP. There's my file, or sorry, there's my text that I've recorded from the terminal. Again, I'm kind of zipping through this because I just wanted you to get a feel for the syntax of the language, not necessary to become a full-blown expert, unless if your, path is going to be Ruby, then absolutely go for it. But for now, we're just kind of going through some of the highlights. So we have that. What we can also do, things you might be concerned with, especially from a Rails perspective, is writing loops or doing if statements, things of that nature. Pretty straightforward. It's just going to be if, your case, and then it's going to be pretty much everything will end with the end call. So I've got in the slides, oh, clear doesn't exist. I should maybe just do this in a file with CLS. You know what? I don't know if I can do this, but one sec. Clear. Control L. Sorry. Okay. And we're back. Again, Ruby is not my first or second or even third language. If you want to clear out the terminal, it's Control L while you are inside of the interpreter. Again, not my thing, but it's worth looking up for you all. Okay, so next example, I've got reading in a name, checking if it's capitalized, and doing basically a simple branching statement here. So let's say, focus, name equals gets.chomp. Chomp is going to get rid of the white space at the end there. And my name is, let's say, lowercase. Perfect. If name equals name.capitalize, puts, I almost wrote print, welcome to the class plus name. Other thing here too, concatenation's handled with the plus. So string 1 here, concatenate name. And we should probably add a space here so that it shows up nicely. Else puts error, name not capitalized. How dare you? End. So if, else, end. Translate that to whichever your favorite language is. Probably looks very, very familiar, right? Oh my goodness, name's not capitalized. Well, let's fix that. I'm just hitting up to get to the last entered statement. One of the kind of nice things, at least with IRB, is that if you have a control, like a control block of some kind, it'll automatically have that. Whereas if you're using Python, it's just going to go line by line. All right, name, let's say it's capital, E no. Let's run our if statement again. Hey, welcome to the class. Thank you. So pretty straightforward. And this dot capitalize is kind of a neat feature. It gives you a little glimpse into some of the other methods or parameters that are available to you in Ruby as well. So variables will have special features. If you need to use them, you'll probably look them up as you go, right? Control L to clear. All right, how do we do a for loop? For I in 0.8 do puts hello dash dash iteration pound brace I brace quote end. Okay, let's break this apart here. So I've got basically for I equals 0, I is less than 8, I plus plus type of situation going on here. And it's going to be for something, do, and then end is going to close up this control block again. There are multiple ways that you can write loops. You can do while loops. You can iterate for in different ways. Look them up as you need, basically. Again, loops are not something too crazy here. Other thing to parse through is this feature as well. So we've got a pound curly brace, our iterator variable, close curly brace. So basically we're interjecting a variable into our string here. I could have just as easily closed the string, done a plus to concatenate, and then add the variable on as well. But different way to look at things here. Look at that, 0 to 8. I said less than 8, I meant less than or equal to 8 because this loop range here is going to be inclusive. You could iterate through arrays, lots of ways that you could handle things. Again, Ruby is very, very nice. All right, where are we at time-wise? 10 minutes. Okay. 10 minutes less the chopping in the middle. Okay, arrays. Let's define some arrays because this is going to be definitely useful for you in terms of Rails. Let's go red, green, blue. All right, so I've defined an array. You might be noticed there's no typing that I'm having to worry about here, so it's very, very loose typing. I'm not saying this is a string or a float. It's just automatically guessing for me. I want to print out the whole array, just puts and then the variable, so we see it all nicely laid out here. I could access them by index. It's going to be 0 indexed, puts colors. There's red. And if I wanted to iterate through, it's not clear, it's Control L. I can do a for each loop, which is again a different loop, but basically we're iterating through each element of the array. Colors.each do iter. Now this is a kind of interesting syntax, this vertical bar thing here. Basically, this is saying for every item in your colors array, loop through it, and call whatever that is currently, whatever this variable name is here. I'm calling it iter for short for iterator. You could call it whatever you want. You could call it color or C or anything. Puts the current color, by the way, is, and we'll use our interjecting variable thing here in our string, done. So should see a nice little loop here. Did I forget something? Colors.each do end, not done. There we go. Current color is red, is green, is blue, and then our output is actually going to be this colors array because it's based on what we've got up here. So arrays, pretty straightforward. Other thing that we're going to be interested in from a Rails perspective, and again, everything that we're doing here is pretty much centered around Rails. Learn Ruby is you need, is the notion of a class, because everything that we do in Rails is mostly going to be class-based. When you start building up your views and your controllers and things like that, you're going to start seeing all this class syntax. Basically, we're making a self-contained object. I've got a nice little dice roller here where I've extended it a touch from the chapter 9 link in the blog that I have linked. So class die def roll, and then we're going to change it slightly by adding a parameter. And I'm going to talk about this in 1 second here. So rand d end. Okay, so simple class, not a whole lot going on here. I'm creating a dice object, a die object. The only function it has is the ability to roll, and it's going to basically generate a random number between 1 and 6. We're going to add 1 to it so that our value, or sorry, between 0 and 6. And we're going to add 1 so that it starts at 1. And that is going to be our simple thing. Now, the change that I made here, if you look at the tutorial that I've got linked, this doesn't exist. So I wanted to show you one way to handle parameters. Oftentimes, if it's only 1, you're not going to see the parentheses. They're just going to say like def roll and then D with no parentheses. If you want to do multiples, it's, at least to me, a little bit cleaner to have the parentheses. And what I also have here too is this d equals 6. So that's giving it a default parameter. So if I don't pass it anything, it's going to assume 6. So we're basically saying I could have any die number of faces on this dice, on this die that I want. 6 is the default, but I could easily make it a d20 or d10 or whatever I wanted it to be. So we have a die. Let's go ahead and say, now the tutorial creates a few different die. So let's follow that, I suppose. Dice equals die.new, die.new. Let's do 3, die.new. All right, so basically, this is creating a new instance of this class object here. and putting it into an array. If I do puts dice, I should see 3 die objects. All right. Each of them have a different memory address, so we know they're different. All right, and now let's just iterate through and roll them. So dice.each do die. Basically the same thing that we did in the last one. Puts die.roll end. I keep wanting to put done, but it's end. So I'm going to print out whatever the output is of this roll value. Now you see here, no parameters, just going to be a d6, meaning it's a 6-sided die. Look at that, 4, 2, 2. And I could keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling. I'm just hitting up and enter. And we see everything's within the range of 1 through 6. All right, well, let's do this again. However, let's say roll a whole bunch 20-sided die. And look at that, we have 20-sided die. Incredible. Run your own game of D&D here now. So pretty honestly straightforward class. Obviously you can go crazy with adding a whole bunch of extra things, but this should at least get you started with Ruby. And what we're going to do next, this will be in a separate video just to, again, chop things up a little bit for you. We are going to extend the basic Rails demo with a touch of MVC. And then again, your homework is going to be to extend that even further. So have a great time. See you in the next video. Bye, everybody.